I'm scaling this travel-based e-commerce brand to $499,000 per week in revenue with Google Ads alone. And in this video, I want to show you exactly how we are making it happen step by step. Now, this is a very special case study for me, not only because this is one of the biggest brands we have scaled to the biggest amounts yet with Google Ads alone, but also because it took a lot of effort and a lot of strategy to even get to this stage. And this is a big deal for me because if you're one of my OG followers, you know that I'm a big believer in having a simplistic approach with Google. The lesser amounts of campaigns you have, the lesser friction that the algorithm has to deal with. And as a result, you eventually end up scaling to very big numbers every single week, every single month. However, there are certain situations, like in the case of this e-commerce brand, where you have to go above and beyond to really establish a strong foundation, especially because of the niche that this brand is in. It's a very difficult niche and very competitive. But once you establish that foundation, that's when you can truly scale, even if you have a lot of different campaigns. But with that, let's first go over the actual Google Ads results and a little bit more about this brand to get a better understanding of exactly what we were dealing with when we first began work here. First and foremost, the total number of campaigns, if we look, that are currently active is 99. That's right, we have 99 different active campaigns. And what you will see is a lot of these campaigns are basically either search campaigns or performance max. There is little to no shopping influence for this brand, and that's because of the niche that it is in. It is airport parking, essentially. It's still an e-commerce brand because what they do is they sell these specific airport parking spots as actual products on the shopping side, on the search sides, etc., on the website. So for example, this is an example website right here. If we look right here, this is parking for a specific airport, Los Angeles airport parking. But these products right here, actual parking spots and actual packages, are sold as actual product listings. So that's why this ends up being a little bit of an e-commerce brand itself. However, we are currently focused more on the search campaign side of things to really scale this brand to the next level. And the average order value for this brand, if we look in the last 7 days alone, it's roughly $71, but it can vary between $67 to $71. On the larger scale, it can be around $70, $71, etc. So it's really not that high ticket store. It's more on the lower ticket to mid ticket range. And because of the average order value of this brand, the cost per acquisition, which is exactly what we were focused on from the start, not the ROAS values, because in a situation like this, the ROAS values don't really make sense, because with the airport parking, we have to focus on volume versus just going after the profitable ROAS metric first and foremost. So for the cost per acquisition, we were always aiming at around a $50 cost per acquisition or less to basically break even, to be even slightly profitable. But as you can see, over time, we've been able to get it to $15 cost per acquisition. Now, each campaign varies. There are some campaigns where the cost per acquisition can go up to $232, but that's because it ranges based on the airport we are targeting in a given location. So there's a lot of complexity for this brand. It literally targets all of the airports within the United States, from Los Angeles to Florida to New York, so on and so forth. So there's all of these nitty-gritty details we have to work with, and all of these different numbers we end up having to deal with. But that's essentially what makes this brand so difficult to work with. Now, when we first began working with this brand, which was roughly about 4 months ago, so right now when I'm recording this video, it's essentially the end of March, we began working with this brand basically November and December of last year. So it's been about 4 to 5 months, a little bit more than that essentially. But what we noticed when we first began working here is that, number one, although this brand was scaling heavily, the revenue, even during the peak time, during Q4, when people are traveling the most, it was nowhere close to where they wanted it to be. I mean, within 2 months, so from November 24th, let's say for example November 1st to November 30th, they were barely doing $783,000 per month in revenue. The cost per acquisition, it was a little bit higher. It was still very acceptable, but the return on ad spend, which is like a secondary metric they look at, they still want a decent ROAS. Anything above a 3x, this was not really that profitable for them. And then this was during the peak season. Go into December and we see a similar situation arise. Now, in this situation, the ROAS actually dropped even more because they started aggressively scaling for no reason, because the overall revenue wasn't there, and even though it wasn't there, they were still trying to increase budgets, the last team. So essentially we had to come in during this time period and really start working from the foundation up. Now, any brand we work with, doesn't matter if it's this brand or any other brand in any other niche or industry, we always start work from the ground up, the foundation up. In this situation, because we were not really dealing with a product feed, because although they did have a product feed, it was not getting advertised during that time, we essentially began work from the landing page and the back end. Now, in terms of landing page for any niche, the number one thing you want to be doing is you want to be basically creating a landing page experience that your customers want to see. In this situation for this niche, customers, number one, really wanted to trust the brands they were working with, and number two, they wanted things to be very simple, very straightforward. So keeping those two things in mind, we kind of helped the client here, which is by the way under my agency, Your Marketing, which if you currently run a brand doing $50,000 or more per month in revenue, you need some extra help scaling to the next level with Google Ads, go onto my website at yourmarketing.com and schedule a free call with me, and let's see how we can work together and make that happen. But what we helped the client essentially with is we're redoing essentially the overall color scheme for this brand. So what we did was we followed this example brand right here. This is called spothero.com, but they had a lot of blue on their website because blue induces trust. So this is one major thing which people in this niche and industry want to do. They want to trust the airport parking. They want to trust that this is a real website, that it will keep their car or vehicle safe. So that's the first approach we took here, really redoing the landing page and helping them essentially redo it to match the customer avatar. Second, we wanted to keep things simplistic. There were a lot of competitors in this niche where they had a lot of fancy things going on, and it just made basically dealing or doing business with this specific website very difficult, because it was difficult to understand what the dates were, where to go about to purchase, so on and so forth. So we followed this similar approach as you see right here, where we kept it very simple. All you had to do was just choose the timing right here, change the dates, and basically just click view details to get taken to this second page. This is like the funnel that we created for them. So the funnel for a normal e-commerce website is the product page, then add to carts, initiate checkout, etc. Similar here, but essentially we went from the product page, which was this product page right here, directly to the initiate checkout. And then from here, it was as simple as just booking and checking out and just purchasing that given spot specifically. So things we wanted to keep very simple in this situation, but that brought us to the actual ad strategy. Once the foundation was strong, the landing page experience was good, and we had provided all of the necessary details in the back end for the overall keywords, for the actual ad copies and whatnot for the search campaigns, then we came onto the ad strategy. Now, in this situation for the ad strategy, this brand is very active on Facebook ads already. They already have a lot of things going on with Facebook, and they wanted to kind of expand beyond Facebook, go on to Google Ads, which is exactly what we ended up doing here. First and foremost, during the time that we actually began work here, so during this time, for example, before we were actually even doing any work at all, what we noticed was during that time, there were a decent amount of campaigns still running during this time and spending money. A lot of these did end up getting shut off because they were just not making money, but it was anywhere from 100 to 200 campaigns at any given time actually spending money. So if you look right here, the list literally goes on and on in terms of how many campaigns they were spending money on. And we wanted to simplify things a bit, because not only did having this many campaigns make management very unrealistic and just a headache, but also it was causing a lot of overlap in between these keywords, because some of these locations were getting targeted twice, with one with a performance max, then another with a search campaign, so on and so forth. So because both of these were going after search placements as well, both these campaign types, this was leading to a lot of unnecessary overlap and internal bidding, which we wanted to stop at all costs to improve the ROAS. So that's essentially what we ended up doing. We simplified the entire approach, brought it to roughly 99 different campaigns, which were all based on what the brand needed and what was already working. So during this time, these campaigns that you see with zero ad spend were not running, because these are some campaigns we launched after we started working with them. But essentially, that brought us to the main focus of what these campaigns should be focused on. And again, it doesn't matter what the overall kind of numbers are going after, whether it's ROAS or target CPA or whatnot. Your entire ad strategy should be based around having a strong foundation first and foremost. Once you have that, then it becomes very realistic and very doable to get to return on ad spend values like this, where it's a 4.69x in the last 30 days, or the cost per acquisition is at $15, and we're at scaling to over $2 to $3 million a month. Of course, summertime peak season is coming up as well, so this is only going to increase. But essentially, from here, what we are starting to realize is the target CPA bidding strategy, because again, we are going after CPAs and not necessarily necessarily after just the ROAS values. This bidding strategy is working best. Now, we do have some campaigns running on maximize conversions, going after a target. Now, we are also A/B testing other bidding strategies here as well, but overall for this account as a whole, target CPA just seems to be performing better. And that's one thing you want to understand for your brand as well. It's not always a situation that target ROAS or target CPA will work better for you. Maybe manual bidding will even work much better for your brand. What you need to be doing and what you need to be focused more on is testing these different approaches, these different strategies to see what your brand responds to the best. That's initially what we did first. Step one for this brand was testing different bidding strategies. We didn't want to test too much with different campaign types because it was either performance max going after display networks or search campaigns that were doing well here. But from there, it was more of a matter of just increasing the budgets based on what is already working and then keeping the return on ad spend steady. Now, for scaling this brand forward, we don't have to do much because as you can see here, a lot of these campaigns are still limited by bidding strategy. Some of them are limited by budget, etc. So there's already limitations which we are dealing with. We don't have to go above and beyond with horizontal scaling, for example, by launching way too many campaign types or doing anything crazy along those lines. It's as simple as implementing vertical scaling by increasing the budgets as much as needed and then slowly decreasing restrictions to get rid of this limited by bidding strategy message right here. Because what we are doing here is we're being very strict with the numbers that we are adding for restrictions. So for example, within this campaign, if we go on over to the target CPA, we can see exactly that we have set a target CPA of $17.77. Now, this might seem like a random number. However, this is based on real data that we have been seeing within the insight section for the last 30, 60, 90 days, realistic data that too. So we are basing these numbers solely off of these metrics right here. And we are slowly decreasing these restrictions over time as we see the ad spend start to go down or the profitability start to go up. Because for this brand, again, our main goal is to really go after that target CPA value, try to get as much conversions as possible through the door rather than focusing on the conversion value in this situation. So that's kind of the long-term scaling strategy. But to kind of recap of what we did, essentially, first step was, of course, starting with the foundation. And this brand right here, again, we like to choose one specific brand, which is the top competitor, and sort of go off of that brand to see what the audience is responding to the best. Because keep in mind, if you have a very big competitor in your market, more likely than not, they've already done research within your niche and your industry to figure out what your customers want to see. They already have the perfect customer persona, they already have a customer avatar, and they're just basing these things off of that alone. So it's very easy to mimic these brands. I always recommend do not copy these brands. You want to rather use it as a template, so then create your own. But from there, step two is going on to the ad strategy and simplifying. We always simplify first, regardless of what brand we work with, because we want to first make the ad spend that they're currently doing as efficient as possible. You could literally be spending thousands of dollars per day in ad spend, but if it's not efficient, then you could be very well wasting 70 to 80% of that budget. So efficiency is the number one goal that we go after. Then it's about scaling, then it's about adding campaign types, subtracting, so on and so forth. So this three-step process is what we did here to scale this brand to almost $500,000 every week in revenue. Again, if you run a brand doing $50,000 or more per month and you want to scale to the very next level with Google Ads, go on to my website at yourmarketing.com, schedule a completely free call with me, and let's see how we can potentially work together and make that happen.